All right, I'm going to start with a couple of questions. And this is the first one. Everything is peachy. Who here thinks that the planet is doing just perfectly fine, the society is doing just perfectly fine, and there is absolutely no need to focus on sustainability further? Please raise your hand, or the people who agree with this statement. No? All right, all right. Then, next question. The information highway is already completely optimized. Do you agree that people in power know how to find information? Maybe you can think about your favorite politician, 60-year-old, who has power to make decisions for us all. Do you think that they are really knowing what they are doing when they are searching for information? No? Okay. Let's go for the next question. What about, is AI here to really, destroying us all, and we should just go back to our caves and forget this nonsense about AI just in total? Okay, some do think so. Well, to some extent, I agree with you that there is a risk, definitely. But if we look more from the positive side, then I think that there is more opportunities than risks on this topic. Okay, so my name is Niina Vielen-Kallio. As mentioned, I'm a sustainability advisor, especially at the wind energy sector. And my co-founder, Saikat Chatterjee, is also here. And he will be deep diving more on the tech side. I will give you more context on the sustainability and what we want to achieve with eWEning Star and how. So this actually started from my own personal problem as an advisor. A lot of information, massive amount of information is available, but it's extremely time-consuming to find it. And even when I store it somewhere in my computer hard drive or in the different bookmarks or in the cloud, I don't always remember where did I put that information. So actually, the information discovery and the rediscovery is very time-consuming for us as users. And sometimes I notice that at later stage, when I would have needed the information, I actually didn't find it, but I find it too late. And that missing information would have made a bigger impact on my job earlier. But when we also discussed with different users with a similar type of work, they also recognize that sometimes they can really notice that when they are working with a project, let's say a wind farm development project, research project, that they are fighting against the algorithms. So they have been researching about a topic A lot, and then they switch to a project B, but they are still getting information that are kind of related to the topic A, because the algorithm has learned, like, oh, you are really interested in this topic, let me give you more. And at the end, indeed, the information gets stored unsystematically in different places. And these are all the user problems. Now, if we put it into a more societal and especially in the energy sector context, what this means in practice is that everybody is doing double research. I can give you an example. Horizon Europe is the biggest fund in EU, which is financing different research. This fund is 100 billion euros. So this is the investment that EU is making on improving our lives in different ways and making research. 15 billion euros is allocated for energy. If we do 2% of double research, we are researching stuff that actually the information is already there. That means that we have spent 300 million euros for double research. Wouldn't it be better to put the 300 million euros on something that we don't know and that we can actually take the next step on the energy transition and accelerate the innovation cycles? So what are we going to do about this? The solution that we want to build, and I can notice that my clicker is not functioning super awesome. We want to personalize the information discovery process. So most of the time we are developing as Googles and ChatGPTs and so on, that they are kind of like one-size-fits-all approaches. So this is the tech, what it can do, and this is what we can provide you. But also, the people in the energy sector are still very dependent on random information that comes their way. And I think that this is the same case also in other sectors. Did you get a newsletter about a topic, or did your colleague send you, this might be relevant for you? So what about if we would have a tool that you actually say, okay, this is the topics that I'm interested in, and please automatically bring me the information that matches my interest points when it becomes available anywhere in the internet. So the automation is also very important, because at the moment we have search engines, which means you are searching, you're spending your time on searching. What about if we would build finding engines that you can actually automate the discovery process? And so that it also becomes your knowledge management system, so that you are storing the information in a sufficient way that you can also rediscover and remodify it on your needs. Okay, so where are we on a grand scheme of things? So the product where we want to combine the human content, expertise, and the AI. So it all starts with the knowledge about the sector. So you need to have a sector expert that can do the first level of categorization of information. How do people normally, what is relevant and how it should be filtered and categorized? And then you need to implement that into two different directions. Okay, what does it mean for the users? And how do you do it from the tech side? Obviously, I'm not the tech guy, so I'm going to talk more about the user side. So the idea is that just the same way as you have online shopping platforms, and I think that this is also one of the things that our society is very much optimized. We are very optimized on finding products that meet our requirements. But what about if you could do the same for information? So you should, as a user, be able to select your personal interest points from the pre-categories. And then you select the actual products, and now I mean the digital products in the website that meet your interest. Are you, let's say, for example, a researcher, and then you are really dependent and interested in scientific articles? Or are you, for example, a business developer in the energy sector, and then industrial reports are much more relevant for you? Or maybe you are more interested in what is the latest funded project on a national level or EU level that is out there. So you can choose. What are you interested? So what does this mean on the tech side on a very high level? So scraping the information from the relevant platforms, and what I heard today, that indeed this is one of the key difference between let's say, more general approaches where the scraping is happening all over. We need to make sure that the scraping actually happens on relevant and trustworthy websites. And then the information will be categorized by using AI. For example, is it about wind? Is it about solar? Is it about hydrogen? But also what type of perspective the information has on it. Is it more on a regulative side? Is it more on the societal impact? Is it on the environmental impact? Or maybe it's financing. So all these are the smart filters that we need to analyze or the tag from the document. We can also look at the value chain, that where is this information, what is this information about? Is it more about, let's say, raw materials that are used? Is it about certain products? Is it about operation of a wind farm, and so on? So the whole idea is to use these different categories, and of course also the geographical area. And then, well, we know from the users what are they interested in. We know from the documents what's in it, and then it's an easy Tinder between those two, matching them. And this is then the approach that we want to do in a larger scale. At this moment, well, this is a screenshot from our prototype, which was focused especially on the scientific articles. And this still doesn't mean that you don't need to use a keyword query. You can still implement that. But actually what you have achieved with this approach is that you exclude irrelevant information. And then your chances of finding the final relevant one gets much higher. So, normally, this is the slide that I start from when I talk in conferences. So I also want to explain why we are doing this. You see here some of the pictures: coral reefs, skiing. Maybe the last one is most important for developers: coffee. These are all at risk when considering climate change. And this is all the topics that we also want to make sure that we don't only tell our children and grandchildren how it was, but they also have an opportunity to experience them. So our vision is to build a sustainable future based on a healthy planet, and want to automate the information discovery in the renewable energy professionals, or for the renewable energy professionals. And as mentioned, the user empowerment is extremely important because we don't want to go to the direction of having ads and having these algorithms working against you. And also affordability, because at the end of the day, the whole energy transition and the fight against climate change need to happen in all societal classes. So it's not only for the highest paying businesses. And also making sure that portion of the profits will go forward to other impact initiatives. And at the end of the day, we want to become globally the most used discovery tool and knowledge management system for the knowledge workers in the renewable energy sector. And with these words, I will invite Saikat to tell more about the tech side.
All right. Thanks, Nina. Thanks a lot for the beautiful top-level description of what we do. Is it working, this one? Yes. So probably the boring stuff now, but also might be interesting for the audience here. So what we do right now, we have mostly focused on creating an MVP, like a minimum viable product prototype, to validate our value proposition, whether this really solves a real problem, more from a business side, because it's important to what we are building. It really creates value. I guess it is self-explanatory, but it's very simple schema. We have some we build some web scrapers, and we have some authentic sources. So sources we define. In the sense, we know, for instance, Nina is an expert in wind energy sector. We know what are the authentic sources that we can rely upon. So for instance, the gray literature, what we call as reports from, I would show you a couple of examples in next slides. And then we scrape data from there. Of course, what data privacy, those topics come up, right? Of course, because we don't own those reports. I would touch upon that. Mostly, we take the title, summary, and the date when it was published, basically. We then have a very simple and a very top-level diagram. We have a tagging component. Basically, it's a classification. So we also we tried zero-shot learning with GPT 3.5, and then we also fine-tuned it on some annotated data. So probably you will be like, okay, this is what's very new in it. Well, the value that adds through this entire process that it is created, and then we started for our MVP. It was very important that we try to keep it as minimal as possible, so we don't over-engineer things, we don't over-code, and so we used some low code, no code, like for instance, Airtable database, and then we created a front end dashboard to the thing that you saw in the previous slide. So for instance, people can select, there is a drop down menu, people can choose what kind of, so there is basically a funnel of, like you can select what information that is relevant for you. So these are the list of tags, like annotations that we did. So it's a multi-level classification. So I think Nina also mentioned. So we have first the perspective. So we have social, technical, environmental, economic, or regulative. So is it the first level? So it's basically like a granularity of layers that we want to classify the documents. So is it about the top level? Is it about a social topic? Is this report about technical? So it makes sense. Then we go to value chain positions. So is it talking about raw materials or products or operations? And then where is the topic about? Because it is, when it is about law and regulations, so it is important that you know whether this report is about Europe or non-Europe or general, where the location. And I did not want to go too deep into the code or anything. So for instance, we first started with like, okay, we want to do a zero shot first with very minimal coding. And we just said, okay, you are, well, this is probably, people have seen this, a similar kind of thing before. So we were like, okay, how about just without any training, we just ask, given that we give a text, like a summary and a title, and we try to classify, we just ask GPT, what is the classification, how good it is. And then we saw like, well, this is our precision recall score, and it wasn't really good, well, as probably expected. So it is, so we need to do something like a fine tuning or any other thing that we in future probably will be doing. And so it was sort of like we wanted to try out like, okay, what is the baseline precision recall scores? And then we trained, well, we fine-tuned basically, and this is our training size, test size, and the precision recall score, of course, improved. This is, of course, I have to say, this is not the best of the best, but it is a prototype that we have built that at least to see the baseline framework that it works. And we want to add more with our sources and also better fine-tuning, better model. And well, just a little bit probably detail. I think it is visible. So it's our different scores. If I like go to the more granularity, how good were the scores on the different levels, basically, because we had multiple levels as I showed. And well, scraping. Because, well, I just wanted to talk about like how it, on a very top level, how it works. So for instance, here you see three website sources. So for instance, Wind Europe, EMP, I think you know the full forms, sorry. So those a couple of sources, like I show example here. So we basically, we scrape the title, summary, we store it in a database that, well, just the schema. So we have the title, perspective scores, value chain, this is after tagging. And then we just basically connect this through an API to our front end. So it's very simple working prototype that we now are validating with our clients, with our customers. And where we want to go further, so right now we have basically wind energy, and we have what you see here, like you have the reports. Not sure whether, yeah. So you have reports, events, projects, scientific articles, insights, news, stakeholders. We want to add these varieties in our product, basically, like what type of classifications we are doing. And now we have wind, we want to have hydrogen, solar, biomass, so different renewable energy sectors we want to add. The code, this is not really, we didn't open source our code, but it is based on, basically if you go to the OpenAI cookbook, there is a fine-tuned classification collab notebook. It is inspired from there, so it's not really very something new, but it's more about the value that we are creating through this connecting different components. And well, if you have any questions, and I'm looking forward to if you have any inputs, if people have worked on something, project similar to this, if you have further tips where this can go, that would be really great to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for a very nice and inspiring talk. Are there any questions? There are several questions, very well.
I noticed that you have these top-level categories like regulatory, environmental, etc. And the prompt that you showed specifically specified to choose only one of these categories. That surprised me actually, because clearly a lot of these topics are going to touch on multiple of these categories. So to some extent, would your accuracy not increase if you allowed more than one of these categories to be chosen? Or do you do that? But was this just a simplification?
So this was a very good question, very good question. This was just an example. So we first tried, we actually saw, well, to begin with, we have some, thanks to Nina, some tagged, let's say, some validation data set, right? So we then asked as many as you, asked the GPT, like as many as you can tag, right? Then we saw like, it is not really accurate. So that's one thing, very good point I should have mentioned, but when I asked for only one tag, we have the highest accuracy. But when it is more than one, it's just second one or third one is just randomly picking. Most of the times it's just, there is almost no accuracy. So we were thinking like, okay, just we ask for one now, but of course, one document can have a map on multiple tags, categories. So this is something we, so in zero shot, we cannot really solve that. But so we had to, in fine-tune, when we fine-tuned it, that's the way to go, basically, So I wanted to show that it's kind of, from using the just without any model training, just zero shot is not the best approach, basically. You won't get the desired classification, so yeah.
Clear. Yeah. So it's a compromise between accuracy
and yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks for the talk. Earlier on in the talk, you mentioned that 2% of the research is duplicate. Is that actually factual, or was that just a value?
This is, so this is based on personal experience. When I have been working in EU projects, we ran all the time in situations where same research topic is done, for example, in Denmark and in the Netherlands. And what is also interesting that because these research projects are done in different languages, then most of the time those results of different countries are not getting to the larger scheme of things. So the 2%, to give you a short answer, no, it's not, that was a low estimation.
All right, thanks.
I say two things, but I would say duplicate research is maybe also important because it reduces the amount of fraud that can happen. And related to that, how would you define? How does the model know what sources it will trust? I think you wrote a few URLs, but I can imagine once your platform grows bigger, you want to get research papers from many sources. How are you going to ensure the truthfulness of the information?
Yeah. Very good question. So obviously the couple of websites was indeed just for the MVP to test it. And I would say that there's two different ways to go with this topic. Either we collaborate also together with the users, which I think is like super important to stay in contact with the users all the time, to evaluate what does bring them value. So either we can get feedback from the users that which websites should be added. And the second one is we can also leave the choice for the users, that if they want to personalize their discovery tool even further, then they can say that, okay, we want also this one to be part of the automated information discovery.
Right, thanks.
So that, just to add one more sentence, so that's basically the human in the loop. It's not just scraping everything that is out there in the internet, but we want to have this loop. Like if the domain experts think this is a reliable source, of course, and then they can customizedly add to their, to the scraping in the workflow, basically. So that's where we want to go. So basically empowering the users. Yeah, sounds a bit more real world problem, but it is, it is not a more of that than a technical problem, because the value is added only when user finds it useful, right? And so that's, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh.
Yep, time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.